So, as my esteemed colleague was telling you, I'm Dan Martinez. I have the great fortune of working at St Hilda's School, and I want to tell you a story about something that's happened here recently. But before we do that, you need to know a little bit more about this school. So, our school values are love, compassion, forgiveness, hope and grace. And they're not just words, we actually live them and they guide us in our actions. Our motto is non nobis solum, and that actually translates to not for ourselves alone. And that's one of the things I love about this school. It's actually alive and well. It's not just something we say, but it's things that we do all the time. And that's evident daily through the use of the coffee shop where you're all registered. That actually is used as a business for the school, which the girls completely run and operate. And 100% of the profits go to supporting a room for a women's refuge for victims of domestic violence. Another way it's alive and well is through our countless number of student volunteers who help feed the homeless, or through our iTunes U collection where we pump out hundreds of courses and give away our content for free. That's one of the things that I love about this school, is that we don't guard what we do well, we share it. And I think that's a really, really powerful thing. So before I go any further, my story starts with this image, and it's an image of a lady's hands. It's taken from a documentary. I showed my girls this documentary about this woman who has arthritis, and she was coming to terms with the fact that she was losing the ability to feed herself, and that was heartbreaking. And the actual lesson itself was not a lesson I was proud of. It was one of those, busy week, reports due, just crap, really. But where the girls took it was unbelievable. So they were going to watch this clip, discuss a few things, and do a little activity. But they weren't happy with that. They said, we actually want to do something about this. And I said, that's amazing, you're 10 years old, what do you want to do about this? And it was that moment where one of the girls turned around and said, what if the fork didn't look like the fork? And it kind of got me thinking. I could have just gone, no, we don't have time for that. But I actually thought, let's go with this. And it really changed the direction of what was happening. It was at that point that I thought, okay, this is a really good opportunity to talk to the girls about the design process and talk to them about the fact that it's cycling, that our projects can enter at any different stage of this process, and the whole process is about really a continuous refining and improvement of products and design. The girls had clearly defined the problem, and they actually wanted to solve it, and they wanted to do that to the benefit of others. And I'll remind you, these are 10-year-old girls. So that's what they did. They started getting down their ideas. They started talking about what would be effective, what wouldn't be effective. The critical analysis that was visible in that was unbelievable. The feedback was a bit harsh at times, but they were great. We collectively chose one design that fit the brief the best. We then investigated the difference between 3D printing and laser cutting. We weighed up the pros and cons, and the girls decided that the laser cutting was definitely the best solution for this process. We created a whole range of different forks, each model slightly adjusted. Real life problem solving in action. We finally had a product. I said, yeah, that's great. And I said to the girls, but what are you going to do with it? How are you going to get this out into the world, and how are you going to make a difference? It's all fine and well to have this at school, but it's actually not serving anyone. What are you going to do? They sat down and they said, well, because they're very smart. I said, Mr. Martinez, we currently have a community partnership with Anglicare, which is an aged care facility. I said, yeah. And I said, we should take them there. And I said, yeah, we should. I said, but you don't drive. And I said, yeah, well, you can take us. No. This is your project. You're driving the learning, not the car. You work out how we're getting there. So a bit of online stalking, and they found Deb, who was a facility manager. We talked about phone etiquette, we talked about email etiquette, and that's exactly what the girls did. They emailed Deb, they set up a phone conversation, and they said, look, we'd love to come down and give you some forks that we'd love for you to trial with your residents. The people at Abry thought my girls were aliens. They said, you've made these forks for us, this is incredible. A month later, we were invited back to attend a monthly meeting. The girls were given practical feedback. The forks are great, they last in the dishwasher, adjust the prongs, make the handles white, all that kind of stuff. And just before we left, they said, oh, by the way, we want to challenge you again. I said, okay, what's the challenge? They said, we want a knife and a spoon. I know, right? And I thought, geez, and my girl said, when do you want them? And that's what we're doing now. So we're working in teams. We have 3 teams. One team's refining the fork, one team's redesigning the spoon, and one team's redesigning the knife. The girls are now up to the prototype stage of the knife and of the spoon, and we hope to get that out by the end of the year. A little bit of press never goes a long way as well, which is quite good. But I guess the biggest takeaway for me is that, you know, if we really want our girls to demonstrate creativity, or students demonstrate creativity and risk-taking, don't we need to model that? Yeah, sometimes us as educators, we can be the biggest barriers for the learning. You know, we have our own agendas, we have, you know, we talk too much, or we're focused on output, or curriculum, or deadlines, and that kills creativity. If we let the students own the learning and choose their own adventure, you'll be amazed where they can go. Thanks.
So, I'm going to try something that I've never done before. Originally, I was going to do a talk about risk and failure, and I was going to have slides that talked about risk and failure, but I thought instead, why talk about it? Instead, I want to do it. So, what I'm going to do is, actually, we could switch back to Dan's computer here. I'm going to try something called petchaflicker.net. Anyone familiar with this? You know what it is? What Petchaflicker is it's a random image generating website. I'm going to let you, the crowd, choose a word. It doesn't have anything to do with technology. My job is going to be to make a coherent presentation based on random images that I have no idea that are coming. I'm already shaking. Seriously, I've never done this before. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to adjust my settings a little bit here. First of all, it doesn't have to be dog. And because I only have about 5 minutes or a little less, and I've already eaten into that time, whoops, I'm going to actually do this, we'll do 10 seconds, and we'll do 12 slides, let's say. Okay? So it defaults to dog, but you guys are going to give me the word. I don't even know. And by the way, it can be odd, unusual, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have to figure out how to tie in my talk to what's coming up on the screen. Again, I have no idea what's coming, so I'm already getting nervous. So someone give me a word, just a random word. What?
Platypus.
Can I get a better word?
Sand.
Chameleon. Can someone spell it? All right, someone help me out here. C-H-A-M. Oh, mango. Yeah, mango. It's shorter, and I don't have to. Okay. Now, I apologize in advance because, again, although it's filtered somewhat, sometimes inappropriate things may appear. And I've been told that I'm allowed to say shit here, so I'm just going to say that now. Or they won't invite me back, so here we go. All right. So technology, integration in schools, and how it ties into mangoes. This is going to be tricky. All right, here we go. So, when talking about technology and integration into schools, often I think of myself as kind of a lone wolf. Just walking out there in the field, trying new things, right? Taking a risk, running out into this dirt playground of technology and information and figuring out how I'm going to integrate it. But when you dig deeper, you really get to the sweetest part of the technology, right? You get to the part where you really start to see amazing things happen with your kids. And sometimes it's just a little bit of dressing on top, but sometimes it's really powerful and flavorful too. So finding that right app and how to integrate it well, it's really a magical thing. And if you look really close, you start to see that there are so many amazing things that you can do in your classroom when it comes to these kind of things. Now, for some people, there tends to be a wide variety of things out there, and it can be a mess, right? But at other times, there can be things that are just, just amazing artsmen, craftsmen, things that if I could bake and make this, it would be incredible. And as a teacher, sometimes you have to tie in those ingredients, put them all together to, just make sure you don't lose your rocks. And at other times, when you really start to think about it, it can be kind of this creamy idea, this creamy creation, this thing that you have to pour that knowledge into the brains of your students, right? Sounds good to me. And to really let learning take flight, you have to make sure that everybody's on board this plane of learning and technology, right? And technology is amazing, right? You can bring up these amazing images, selfies, things like that, but you really get to capture that student and that joy and that emotion. And it's not just the outside, right? Because it's a tough exterior sometimes to break into this world. And it's challenging, right? As a teacher, you never know what you're going to uncover under there. So in the end, make sure all your students get on the bus and join you in this journey of technology integration. Thank you.
All right, g'day everybody. That's going to be my only slide. Actually, I'm not going to have mangoes and I'm not going to have a changing slide. That's going to be the only picture for the next little while. So, my name is Brett Salakas. For those of you who don't know me, I am at Mr. Salakas on Twitter. So, I'm also involved and helped to actually, I founded the AussieEd, hashtag AussieEd movement. So, if you've ever been online and you've participated in a chat, and lots of familiar faces around, and you've ever joined into AussieEd, well, that was my little baby. But, picture's gone, that's okay. I'm going to talk to you about an idea around STEM, and I actually just tweeted out that exact picture, so if you're on Twitter, and you all should be, and I know you all got told yesterday morning, make sure you're on Twitter and you're checking the Twitter feed, and I did tweet Cathy in the morning and say that iPadpalooza was still trending at number 6 in New Zealand this morning when I woke up, so I don't know how that worked. But what I was going to talk to you about is this idea that as globally we start to look at this concept of STEM, but particularly in Australia, as we transition from a real mining boom economy, as our mining boom starts to dwindle, we need to sort of evolve to have a STEM-based economy. So how do we best prepare our students for a STEM economy in which they're going to operate and work? So, what are some of the stumbling blocks that teachers have when we say, okay, I like the idea of STEM, I buy into that concept, I get why it's important, but why don't we do it? So for me, there's like 3 little stumbling blocks that I can think of. One is that it costs a lot. So we think. We think we have to buy into a lot of big companies, and we have to buy a lot of tools, we have to buy a lot of equipment, a lot of devices, and it can be very, very expensive for little schools. Second thing is, it can be overwhelming. Where do I start? I want to do something in STEM, but I just don't know where to get going. And the third thing is, and well done to everyone because I can hear my phone going buzz, buzz, buzz. The third thing is, if I'm going to do STEM, how do I do it at a level that is purposeful and meaningful and has real impact, that I'm not just doing something surface, that I'm not just doing something that boosts engagement, but I'm actually going to do something that delivers my curriculum and has real impact on the learning of my students. They're the 3 stumbling blocks. So, that picture that was up there, World STEM Challenge. It's a little idea that I've been percolating with and playing with just on the quiet for the last 6 to 8 months. And it's almost ready to launch. And it's going to launch in a couple of months. So hopefully around about November. So I'm sharing an idea with you, which is why there's not 1,000 slides. So this idea is, how do we absolutely smash out those 3 problems all in one big hit? And the solution, or one of the possible solutions, could be our collective crowdsourcing of knowledge. So, in our World STEM Challenge, the challenge is simply going to be a call to all the teachers of the world to look at their best practice. What are we doing as a collective around the world that is quality STEM lessons? What are we doing that is really making a difference? Now, hopefully, even on a small scale of success, even if we only got, say, 50 or 100 people to buy into this, if we said the challenge is, for your best STEM-based lesson, make a 1 to 2 minute movie and share that movie with the world. What did you do? What were the students doing? What were the outcomes? What did you learn? What mistakes did you make that you could do better next time? Share that collective crowdsourced knowledge, put it online, have one place, one-stop shop, that phrase, that one-stop shop, that collective place that we can all go to, and even if it's minutely success, even if we get 50, maybe 100 videos, what a beautiful resource that is. To be able to go there and to have 100 really high-quality videos that we can stop, that we can look at, and we can go, I love what that teacher in New Zealand is doing. I love what that teacher in Cairns is doing, and I can alter that, and I can do something similar with my class in Sydney, with my class in Hobart, with my class in Austin. So that is the concept behind World STEM. I think as a collective, if we all sort of rally behind it, it really has the potential to impact on the learning of hundreds, if not thousands, of kids around the world. And that's why we all do this sort of thing. We are committed teachers. We're coming in our holidays. We've travelled near and far to actually come here to learn, to be better, and to have greater impact on our students. And I think this World STEM Challenge could be one way that we can impact on the learning of many, many kids. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name's Steve Papp. I'm the principal at the Field of Mars Environmental Education Centre. I better turn off notifications. Do you want? I'll leave it there. Who knows, it could be part of the entertainment. Look, I'm here today to help you or to convince you to get outside. Because the reality is, for lots of the kids that you're teaching today, 50% of those kids have never had any meaningful contact in nature. They've actually never been outside and experienced national parks. My job is looking after essentially 16,000 kids a year coming through my centre. And what we are trying to do is do programs to actually engage kids in outdoor environmental ed and sustainability education, whether it's using technology or not. But for myself, my journey began a long time ago. And as a kid, I was able to go and play in my local creek. I was able to go down to the local bushland. We used to build cubbies. We used to play with sticks. Imagine that, being able to pick up sticks and do the things that you like. We used to do all sorts of things in these places when I basically learnt to love these places just by being involved. The other thing that was really pivotal to me as a young person was television. And I used to spend many of my afternoons sitting down watching TV, and particularly documentaries by one of my favourite people, David Attenborough. And David was probably one of those people that really started to ignite my love of nature. He made me go, wow, look at these places, they are really cool. Look at the animals you can find in them. He's one of the reasons I love to go travelling. And anytime I go away, it's basically to visit national parks and to see some of those natural wonders in the world. He's an amazing guy, and make sure you see him next time you turn up. The problem being, as I mentioned right at the beginning, for 50% of our kids that are in our schools, they actually have no connection to nature at all. Most of them have never been to a national park. 1 in 2 have never been bushwalking. And what we have is an entire generation of kids which are disconnected. They do not understand nature, they don't understand its significance. And the reality is, to develop a love of nature, you've got to give kids quality time within it. They need time in your playground, they need time at your local park, they need time at the national parks. And as a classroom teacher, you've got the ability to give kids time in these places. And the challenge for you today is to think about, what are you doing inside that you can possibly take outside? My journey as a teacher began in the western suburbs of Sydney, where basically for my kids who were really disengaged in the classroom, who were switched off to learning, who didn't want to be there, who had basically grown up in a life of worksheets, by taking my kids to the local park and down into the local creek, all of a sudden they started becoming interested in learning. And we were able to take the things we were doing outside back into the classroom, and they went from being really disengaged, switched off learners to kids that were really excited to be at school, because we weren't inside in those 4 walls. So the big thing for us today is, what are you going to take out? Can you take your iPads outside? Can you take your devices outside? How can you change what you're doing inside to make outside better? And the other great thing about these devices, or the great thing about nature, is you can't find it on the App Store. You know, if you want kids to really experience these things properly, they need to get outside, in most cases. And where do you begin? Probably the easiest thing to start with is photography. Photography basically gives kids a window onto the world. And for us, one of the great things about photography is it actually slows kids down. It makes them stop, it makes them look, and it makes them experience nature in all sorts of different ways. Particularly when that's done properly, and particularly when it has a focus. Because it lets them experience the magic of life. And these are all photos which are taken by kids from year 3 and up at our centre at different times. Finding geckos, and looking at light, looking at the magic of texture. And kids walk away from these places going, wow, this is really cool. These are beautiful and these are fun. And like Craig said at our first day, at the end, all I want the kids to do is walk away from these beautiful places going, these places are magical. Because they will go into jobs at some stage where they have a responsibility to make a choice about what we do with these places. Do we keep them? Do we develop them? What is the value of them? Even taking your documentaries outside. Nature is a perfect context for learning. And you can build beautiful things like this. And of course, the sound's not quite working, but this guy, what he's talking about is the symmetry in leaves. So he spent his time outside or in the classroom doing research on bilateral symmetry, looking at what works in nature, going and finding those examples in the bush and using the real context of being outdoors to discover what's happening out there. Even things like stop motion animation. There's no reason why you need to be stuck with a built stage inside the classroom. Use the outdoors to actually create these animations as well. This is an example of one about a really cool spider that we have all the way through the east coast of Australia called the funnel web, which is the world's most dangerous spider. And you get a bit excited when you see them. One of my colleagues, Liz, the other day was mentioning when we were sitting in the bush, one of these little spiders came wandering through. And of course, if your kid was bitten and we didn't get to the hospital, they would be dead. So we don't quite want those sorts of things to happen. I wouldn't recommend it, but she actually squashed the spider in front of the kids. But that's basically to protect everyone and to protect the kids which are around in those places as well. And the other way, obviously, if you can't get outdoors, is you leverage the power of technology to bring nature in. This is one of the books that we've been building called Eucalypt Forest. And we've been trying to create lots of multi-touch books that basically are encouraging kids to get outside and explore. Because in many cases, these devices, this is one of the easy ways to handheld someone to get them outdoors, to look at nature, to actually explore and have really meaningful connections. And obviously as a teacher, a good classroom teacher is a great outdoors teacher as well. Because you should be able to take many of the things that you're doing indoors and transform that to a learning outdoors environment. Because the outdoors is real. It's a great place for project-based learning, for challenge-based learning, for authentic learning. Give it a go. Take your art outside, anything else you can. And I'm going to leave you with one of the last quotes from David Attenborough. No one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they have never experienced. You can provide those experiences. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay. Hey, everybody. How are you? I am well. My passion for a very long time has been communication. I work at a high school. We have about 2,700 students, and we are K through 12, one-to-one iPad. And what's really interesting is what I'm noticing is it doesn't matter what technology you have. And I know we've talked yesterday, I know Richard even mentioned it, like things are totally going to be revolutionized in the next 10 years. We don't know what that looks like. But one thing we do know is that communication is going to be integral in the next 10 years. So, my talk is on nurturing the neglected seed, which also something about me, I love alliteration. So anytime I can throw in some alliteration, it's going to happen. Now I have to figure out this. All right. That's me in high school. So think back to a younger day when perhaps you had bangs and longer hair. Perhaps you still do. That's fine. I remember the technology of my time. And the technology of my time was actually handwritten letters and GASP, AOL, Instant Messenger. Yes, that was a thing. And pagers. That was my technology. That was how I grew up really starting to communicate. Flash forward, and my son, 9-year-old, has absolutely no idea what a corded telephone is. In fact, like, corded telephone to him is when his iPhone is charging and he doesn't have access to it. He lives in a world of constant Wi-Fi, or at least he'll complain if it's not constant Wi-Fi, and emoticons. I don't know if you've ever seen an elementary student go wild with emoticons and texting, but there's like a lot of poop and, you know, like angry faces with like steam coming out of them. It's quite amusing. I can tell when he's texting from my husband's phone because I soon realized my husband doesn't text that way, and so I'm like, oh yes, Caden has the phone again. And watches that are able to send emails. This is our students' current reality. And a lot of times we focus on these 3 C's, but too often we neglect one of the most important, which is communication. Furthermore, while we're on alliteration and the topic of C's, let's not forget colleges and career readiness, because that's incredibly important no matter what career they go into, whether they start their own business, whether they go on, those things are going to be important. FDR said it best: we cannot build our future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. And there's some excellent research. Don't take my word for it or FDR's word for it. There were almost 800 managers that were surveyed 4 years ago, and when they were surveyed, communication skills were the most important, and in the next 5 years will continue to be even more important. Another study looked at soft skills, and even in the soft skills, communication was the top ranked yet again. One of my favorite phrases I heard at our South by Southwest event was, we hire for hard skills and we fire for soft skills. And it's true. I mean, we hire people based on, their credentials on paper, their certificates, but that's typically not why they're fired. They're fired because they send a rogue email. They're fired because they can't get work in on time. They're fired because they can't work well in a group. And communication isn't just oral and written. Too often we just think about communication as oral and written, and it's not. It encompasses many other skills like nonverbal, listening and visual, and multimedia. And let's think about it. And I'm so glad that Dan actually mentioned email etiquette, because I harp on this a lot with our students, and I think it's a forgotten skill. As much as we hate email, raise your hand if you hate email. Nobody loves it. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and is like, hey, I got email. It's not the same when you used to go back to the mailbox and you got like letters and it was like, yay, somebody wrote me. It's not that feeling anymore. So email etiquette, also how to communicate in a group. We need to be able to teach students how to do this. They're not just born knowing how to communicate effectively. And how to communicate their skills online, as well as how to communicate appropriately using social media and curation. Take this example. This hit the news. I don't think that this SumE card originated with that teacher by any means. I've seen it around. However, what happened was a parent interested in that school decided to Google that school, found the teacher's Pinterest board, found this, then started having negative thoughts and feelings about that teacher, and then all of a sudden it hits the news, and it's a judgment even though that wasn't the intention. So we have to be so careful with how we communicate and curate online. I know I did see actual telephone booths here, but that's not a thing you see in the US. Like, that's a and if you do, like, I want to go take a picture with it because it's just not something you see very often. So, our type of technology, it's becoming obsolete, at least the corded type of communication. And in 2025, that's the year that my son will graduate. I want him to be able to communicate with whatever tools he has in his hands. And we don't know what that technology is going to be. So please stop neglecting and start nurturing communication. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. When you're flying into land anywhere and you glance out the window, it's hard to deny that people shape the land that they live in. The environment reflects the values and the priorities of the people that live there. But the inverse is also true. Not only do we shape the land, but the land shapes us. The history of our environment is integrally connected to our culture, where we have been and where we're headed as a community. This is critically important for Māori. Toitu te whenua, whatunaro te tangata. People come and go, but the land will always remain. The land is the constant that sticks our past, our present, and our future together. And we understand our land and our place in it with story, scripture, myth, proverb, and legend. The challenge that we faced was, how do we connect a new generation of learners and thinkers to the stories that shape our local area, Papamoa? Because our stories connect us to one another. And as well as this, how do we teach narrative writing and the deeper features of writing and storytelling? I have the privilege of working at a New Zealand primary school, teaching 8 to 10-year-olds. Our school has a wide range of learners, both academically and socio-economically, with students getting dropped off at school in Mercedes and kids walking to school with no shoes, no breakfast, and no lunch. In this context, we wanted to teach specific and rigorous writing and visual language skills, and we wanted to give a modern context to the rich heritage that our students have, using technology as a vehicle to connect the stories of the past to the present. Because like I said, people craft the land, and the land crafts people. We use the explicit teaching of narrative writing, script writing, QuickTime Player's screen recording feature, Minecraft, and iMovie to enable our learners to retell, reenact, and recreate the scenes, set, characters, and legend of Rata, the legend of Moa, and the story of the 3 whales. Through this, the students developed problem solving, incredible teamwork, the objectives we wanted to teach from the New Zealand curriculum, a connection and ownership to the unique cultural heritage of Papamoa, finalist positions in the National Digital Excellence Awards, and most of all, a strong sense of mana, or of pride. The students' ownership and their engagement in their learning was phenomenal. They were inspired to excel and connected in a powerful way to their heritage. I'd love to share a short snippet of one of the finalists with you.
Long ago, Rata wandered sadly along the bank of the stream. He thought of his people who were becoming uncomfortable and crowded on the island. He needed a walker to carry his people to a different island. He looked shocked and excited when he sees a canoe sitting on logs stretched through the forest. Mine? Yes, Rata's walker.
Thank you.
So those are tough acts to follow, aren't they? I don't even have a dongle here. What's happening? Oh, I lost it. Okay. So instead of trying to follow them with a story about me, let's let our students do this storytelling for us, right? As our big finale, let's make some noise for these kids and what they can do, right? Because when our students get messy, they make magic. And today I want to show you some of the amazing work that's happening when we see students connect to their creativity and when we see our students doing things that they're excited about. And I want to tell you about tool inclusivity, which is an interesting catchphrase. I don't know if I developed it, but I'd like to pretend I did maybe. But when they mix paint and pixels, traditional media with all kinds of wonderful tactile materials, I know I'm in heaven seeing what they're up to, and I get excited about the things that we don't see in the classroom, the barriers between these mediums for learning. So, here we go. It's going to get messy. Are you ready? Of course you are. But that didn't sound like you were, all right? It starts with the camera. This is my baby's first selfie, right? And that's the point where I really like to think about the way they can communicate with those devices, those windows into the world, as Steve just beautifully said. Because here you're seeing students using their live camera to compose and to start to talk about what it is that they're actually viewing and creating. And those two things are, of course, really related. And then you can connect that to visual literacy, right? Seems like a no-brainer when you say it like that, but it's the visual feedback that's available to them instantly on screen that's so incredibly important. Because through the lens, they can see their work and their world differently. And again, those two things are really related. If you want to be empowered to create, you have to also be inspired by what you see around them. So here you've got a mural that's being reworked, repeated, and extended. A little piece of it becomes a digital drawing that is then taken to the 3D printer in this particular workflow. And then this beautiful embossed tile becomes part of a collaborative installation on site. Fun, right? Oh, come on. Seriously, at this library, that was a whole wall of work, and it was wonderful. And in this connected workflow, what you're seeing is patterns developing, mandalas on screen, and then they became the starting point for this, where the mandalas were printed, cut out, and those little hands and big minds constructed using origami techniques, these beautiful, beautiful investigations. And again, same app, just to show you the flexibility. Here we've got mathematical concepts being explored through a collaboration that I did with Mr. Martinez, who you saw earlier. These fractal flowers could spin in the wind, and radial symmetry, people. I know, finally a wow. It took a while. We're 2.5 minutes in, people. The same kaleidoscopic app here is being used to build out beautiful constructions. So instead of sketching, you've got that ideation phase happening on screen, and then the real materials come in. And sometimes we get pretty big. Here's some large-scale stuff happening, and a shout-out to another little hunt on the screen there. 2 of them, actually. Because sometimes our learners do believe that their creativity, their ability to make and create, is limited to their ability to draw from life. And of course, that's not true, is it? Of course it's not. It's not true. It's not true. We want to think big about the possibilities, not about the things that we have as restraints. And when students take physical materials into the real world, magic meets making. Say it with me. Magic meets making. Yeah, that's what digital tools can do for us. Be playful, be resourceful, and be responsive. These are things we talk about all the time. Here we've got students thinking about 3D form. They're moving from the 2-dimensional using nets on iPad, and then they're building out these little tackers. We've seen entire grocery stores created with this app. Beautiful, wonderful kinetic artworks, and we've created lots of monsters around these parts too. If you look at my social media, you see these guys everywhere. They're crazy little monsters. We use Daily Monsters app at times to go through a process of building these little critters from abstract shapes in the app, but we also mix real ink and talk about the properties and the values of those different tools. This is Harriet. Say hi to Harriet. And this is her habitat, which a student has built outside. So the digital work has actually informed their practice. They've gone outside and they've used natural materials and really had to connect what they've created in so many different cross-curricular kinds of ways. These grade 1 students are using augmented reality to build informative imagery, and they're talking about animal classification and really investigating those critters on the screen. And here's our very own Archimboldo style portraits, where the Renaissance is something we talk about while we make food selfies. Yeah, as you do, right? Of course you do. Meeting students where they're at is so important, right? Right? Yes. And so thinking about that opportunity to feed back into their camera roll as they go through multi-step processes is really important. Looking at the camera helps me to talk really tangibly about the visual language that they're using. And as printouts from devices become cutouts and collages, each step does not rely on the success of the previous one. And that's a beautifully empowering way to work, where students can see that they can drop in and out of a creative process at any time. They have the control. And what teacher doesn't love giving the kids all the control? Oh good, you got the joke. Yeah. So So this image might need some explanation as I finish up, because this doesn't look like your ordinary kind of kid right now. But we're talking about discussion, we're talking about Picasso as we discuss really, really complex ways of producing emotion in portraiture. And in this classroom, all of the kids were sticking bits and pieces they had drawn from each other onto their faces, and those came alive. We then have printed our images, things that we've made on those devices with the laser printer. Shout out to our team here who've been working really hard, particularly Brant Ward and I, to produce this, because there's not a lot of rules or information about these machines at the moment. So because we don't know what we're doing, we can't make any mistakes. And what you're seeing here is a 600-year-old process, essentially intaglio printing, Gutenberg stuff, right? Being played out from our device screens and then on a laser cutter. We are running that through the printing press, and this is what's happening. We've got beautiful images, really beautiful things, and these explorations of gifts are happening in the same classroom. Little people drawing beautiful trees, animating them full of life, right? Don't you just want to be in grade 2 when you see stuff like that? Or what about this, middle schooling, where Google Earth is the starting point for beautiful satellite imagery that come to life as we discuss the concept of abstraction. And in this space, you know, here at St Hilda's, we're so fortunate to work across the curricula. These are sphero ball explorations as we paint with light and code. And you're seeing that played out here. So, no barriers, right? No technology and other. It's all about thinking through the best ways that our students can show us what they know. And if you do that, maybe you'll make a big mess, but you will certainly have some fun and some learning. Thank you so much, everybody. So, Super Slammers, come on out. Woo.